The Steelers and the Atlanta Falcons have been held back this season by poor quarterback play. Desmond Ridder, he's been shit. Kenny Pickett, he just got injured against the Houston Texans. He's been shit too. They have some serious concerns at quarterback. Okay, Kenny Pickett, I was never high on him to begin with. And y'all know this. I wanted Malik Willis. And regardless of what y'all may think about Malik Willis, yeah, he may not be great right now, but at least he has way more potential than Kenny Pickett. You see, with Kenny Pickett, he hasn't been helped out due to the fact that Matt Canada is the worst offensive coordinator in the NFL. And with a guy like Kenny Pickett, who has a very low floor and a very low ceiling, you know, at best, if Kenny Pickett reaches his potential, he's a top 12, top 13 quarterback. That's pretty much it. So for you to be able to win Super Bowls or be able to compete with him, you got to have a good offensive coordinator and you got to have a good supporting cast around him. You got the receivers down packed, you got some solid backs, but your offensive line is garbage. Now, Kenny Pickett, you know, he doesn't have a great arm, and he's not really a great athlete. And for some reason, he only plays his best football when the game is on the line. And my thing with Kenny Pickett is that I kind of label him to be a scrappy quarterback. He's one of those quarterbacks that I don't really think he's ever going to have a game that you're going to look at in the stat sheet and you're going to say, oh yeah, like he played an incredible game. I think he's one of those quarterbacks that kind of just plays at his best when the game is on the line. But the problem with that is that he's not really putting the Steelers in a situation to be in close games for him to elevate in the fourth quarter like he did during his rookie season, because the Steelers are getting blown the fuck out. I mean, they lost to the Houston Texans and he played garbage. I'm going to just keep it 100. I don't want to hear anything about, oh, he needs more time and Matt Canada this, Matt Canada that. When you're drafted in the first round, you're expected to be able to overcome dysfunction. Justin Herbert has went through several offensive coordinators, and he's about to go through his third head coaching change this offseason after the season concludes. And yet, he's still one of the top-end quarterbacks in the league. When you're drafted in the first round, you got to be able to somewhat be able to overcome some dysfunction. Okay? A good offensive coordinator makes an average quarterback look great. But a great quarterback can make an average play caller look good. Hence why guys like Adam Gase have gone coaching jobs, because he was the offensive coordinator for the Broncos during the Peyton Manning era for a couple of years. So when you got a great quarterback, he can make a bad or average offensive coordinator look great. Matt Nagy with the Chiefs, he got a job thanks to Patrick Mahomes. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and this Kenny Pickett situation, Matt Canada isn't helping Kenny Pickett, but Kenny Pickett just isn't that good. Okay, and I like Kenny Pickett. I just don't like him as the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I really wanted somebody better. And it's no surprise that many analysts out there consider the 2021 quarterback class to be, or the 2022 quarterback class to be, really weak. And it's no surprise that Desmond Ridder is struggling too. Let's get on him. I mean, we knew what Desmond Ridder was going to be. Anytime you get compared to Alex Smith, my expectations are automatically low for you. I don't know why people make it seem like being labeled a game manager and being labeled an Alex Smith kind of quarterback is, you know, a compliment, because it's not. If you're an Alex Smith level quarterback, that means that anytime that team has an opportunity to replace you, they're going to do it. And you saw what happened with Alex Smith his final season in Kansas City. You know, they let him start while Patrick Mahomes was getting groomed on the bench. And after the season concluded, they shipped him off to Washington and they started Patrick Mahomes. And when you got an Alex Smith kind of quarterback like a Desmond Ridder, you're always going to be wandering and your eyes are always going to be the lookout for a potential upgrade. Desmond Ridder hasn't played good, and he hasn't even played anything close to what an Alex Smith will play at. Alex Smith doesn't throw interceptions. I watched that Jacksonville Jaguars game live. Woke myself up at 9:30 a.m., brought the ESPN Plus subscription because I really just wanted to see Desmond Ridder. I really did. And I was really disappointed. This fool threw 2 interceptions on back-to-back drives. Made the same mistake twice. Like, it's easy to get mad at Bryce Young, but Bryce Young is a rookie quarterback, so he has time. Desmond Ridder's in year 2. He was supposed to be better than Marcus Mariota. The reason why Marcus Mariota got benched for Desmond Ridder last year? Because Marcus Mariota folded in big moments of games. Anytime the Falcons were in a close game with Marcus Mariota as the starting quarterback and the ball was in his hands, he always choked it away. And the long time they were able to win despite him choking was when their defense got to stop. I believe it was against the Seattle Seahawks. So in comes Desmond Ridder, and Falcon fans before the season, what were they telling you? We don't need Desmond Ridder to be great. He don't need to be an MVP candidate. All we need him to do is to not turn the football over and hand the damn football over. And in hindsight, that sounds easy. It sounds easy just to say, yeah, like, it's easy for a quarterback to take care of the football. And it's easy for them to hand the football over. And Atlanta has some really phenomenal running backs. I love me Bijan Robinson. I got me a Bijan Robinson jersey on the way along with my Bryce Young jersey. But the thing is, what's going to happen when the team start putting 8-9 guys in the box and they start trying to game plan just to stop the run? And you got Desmond Ridder, Mr. Check Down Charlie, who doesn't really like to throw the football downfield. I saw some rumors out there that say that the Dallas Cowboys were intrigued in trying to trade for Kyle Pitts. And apparently, according to these reports, they called the Atlanta Falcons, and the Falcons laughed. They said, no way. What's the point of keeping Kyle Pitts if he's getting held hostage by Mr. Checkdown Ridder? Come on, man. I mean, Desmond Ridder is holding back some really talented players. People keep making it seem like Kyle Pitts is a bust. He's not a bust. Neither is Drake London. Look who's throwing the football. Look who was throwing Kyle Pitts the football last year. You see, Desmond Ridder is just not at that quarterback right now. And is he going to improve? He might. I doubt it. And the better quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons, I feel, has been the backup the whole time, and that's Taylor Heinicke. And if the Falcons start Taylor Heinicke, I think that they possibly could win this division. Because Bryce Young isn't as good as what I thought, and the Panthers aren't a good team. The Buccaneers have looked really good with Baker Mayfield up to this point, but we'll see if they're going to be able to keep it together. The New Orleans Saints, they're mid. I don't think they're good. Derek Carr hasn't been anything special. So with Taylor Heinicke at the helm at quarterback, I think the Falcons would be in good hands. At least Taylor Heinicke, he can get your offense moving the football downfield. He may lose you a couple of games because he may have a couple of games where he turns the football over, but at least he's better than Desmond Ridder. He'll make plays. He'll try to push the football downfield. Desmond Ridder, he does take some shots deep, but not enough. The dude just plays super conservative, man. Like, everything is a check down. And at this point, with talks of him maybe getting benched, even though Arthur Smith has came out and gave him support, what's going to happen if he struggles this week? Then what? We get to halftime. Are you just going to keep rolling with Desmond Ridder? Or are you going to throw in Taylor Heinicke? I find it really funny how a guy like Arthur Smith in a really critical year would put his job security on the line for a guy like Desmond Ridder. If my job is on the line and I'm a head coach on the hot seat, if I get fired, I at least want to go out with the elite top-end quarterback. When you got an elite top-end quarterback, it makes things a lot easier. The Falcons would have made things so much easier if they just had a better quarterback. Even with Derek Carr, they probably would be a better team. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers on the other end, though, you're kind of SOL right now because you're kind of stuck with Kenny Pickett and he's out. And excuse me, I choked up because I don't want to say this name, Mitchell Trubisky. Like, I am so tired of seeing Mitchell Trubisky in the Pittsburgh Steelers uniform. Like, if Kenny Pickett would have played last year against the Carolina Panthers and never got hurt, we would have won that game and made it to the postseason. Mitch Trubisky, the problem with him is that he just has tunnel vision. He just has a problem with throwing the football to the other team. He's not good. And I was going back and forth with one of my homies who was saying that he can't be no worse than Kenny Pickett. Yes, he can. Kenny Pickett may be bad, but Mitch Trubisky is worse. And so is Mason Rudolph if he's still even on the roster. Like, the Steelers have never been a team that has gotten fantastic quarterback play over the last couple of years. Like, Big Ben in 2019 and until he retired, he was not good. That was it. But at least he was better than what we have right now. But even then, he was still one of the worst quarterbacks in the league on the tail end of his career, his last 2 seasons. And then you look at Kenny Pickett. I mean, where's the upside with Kenny Pickett? You know, like, Kenny Pickett, I like the fact that he's a scrappy player, but I don't really see him as a guy who really, I think, is going to be able to lead you to a championship consistently like a Patrick Mahomes or a Justin Herbert. We're the Pittsburgh Steelers. We went from a Hall of Fame quarterback to a quarterback who at best can be decent. What? One thing about Big Ben, like, Big Ben was a ball player, man. There was never a single game that Big Ben played in that the Steelers didn't have a chance at winning when he was in his prime, especially from 2012 to 2018. He was playing some of the best football of his career. We go from Big Ben to Kenny Pickett. I mean, this is tough. Real tough. And I want to like Kenny Pickett, and I do like him. Off the field, I do. I listened to the episode that he did with Big Ben on his podcast, and I hope that Big Ben is, you know, trying to school him up, trying to give him some pointers, because he needs them. I mean, Kenny Pickett, I just kind of, I wasn't really expecting much. And it's kind of crazy that, you know, when people ask me how I feel about Kenny Pickett, it's like, you know, like, he's our quarterback. That's it. So, of course, I got to support him and I got to root for him. But if I had the opportunity to select another quarterback in the upcoming draft, a Shedeur Sanders, a Caleb Williams, or a Drake, man, I'll take either one of those quarterbacks in a heartbeat. Like, Kenny Pickett, like, he's a scrappy quarterback, but I don't really know if scrappy wins you a lot of games. And when you look at the future of the AFC North, or the future of the AFC, just the AFC as a whole, a lot of great quarterbacks are in this conference. And if Kenny Pickett isn't even a top 15 quarterback, how are the Steelers ever going to be able to win another Super Bowl? We've been stuck at 6 for the longest. And Mike Tomlin, you know, for somebody who's been around so long, do you think he will kind of be privy to the rest of the NFL and what's going on? The rest of the conference has top-end quarterbacks. Nobody's going to be able to make it out with a Kenny Pickett. I'm sorry. The Falcons could make it out maybe with the above-average quarterback because the NFC doesn't have a lot of great quarterbacks. The only elite quarterback they got in the NFC right now at this moment is Jalen Hurts. In the AFC, though, it's like the Western Conference. In the NBA, majority of the best teams are in the West. And majority of the best quarterbacks in the NFL are in the AFC. And for the Steelers, Kenny Pickett, I'm not trying to make it seem like I'm counting him out, but I also know that there's a ceiling with Kenny Pickett. And even then, at his best, he's not going to be any better than a top 12 quarterback. And I just don't really know if that's going to be good enough for the Steelers to always be a championship team. I mean, the Steelers got a great defense, and they always do a really good job at drafting and developing players, but in the AFC, when you're going up against Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and even in your own division, you got to face Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson twice. Eventually, those teams are going to be good enough where the Steelers' defense isn't going to be able to completely carry you all the time. The Steelers' defense is this offense. You might as well name TJ Watt the quarterback. Kenny Pickett is just, I don't think he's a guy that I personally, as a player, I would be motivated to go to war for. He doesn't look like a guy who really gets my juices flowing. He just looks like a good guy that's cool to have a drink or a beer with, maybe have a little smoke session with, and that's cool. Like, he's a cool player, but as far as a player that I believe would be able to elevate us in the thickest of moments, I don't know, and Kenny Pickett is that guy. And I do like the fact that he's a feisty, scrappy player because the dude does play some really good football in the fourth quarter, but the problem is that, like, he just plays garbage. And when you play garbage for the first 3 quarters, you're not going to be in position to play well in the fourth quarter because the game is going to be well out of reach. You see, one thing about Big Ben, it didn't matter how bad he played. One thing about it, he'll go out slinging that bug. Like, I remember that Thursday night game against the Minnesota Vikings during his final season. In the fourth quarter, the Steelers were down multiple possessions, and they still lost the game. But Big Ben, oh my goodness. You talk about vintage Big Ben, the beast that we awakening. Big Ben was really pushing the football down the field. Like, anytime the game seemed like it was out of reach, you knew Big Ben was going to take a lot of shots. He was going to be super aggressive, and Kenny Pickett just isn't that. He doesn't have the arm strength that Big Ben has. He can't fit throws in the tight windows. And he's not really a quarterback that's really ultra aggressive. You got George Pickens. If Big Ben had George Pickens, he'll be throwing lob passes downfield to him all day. You know, Kenny Pickett, I like the fact that he's tough and scrappy, but I don't think tough and scrappy is going to be able to get you any Super Bowls or any Super Bowl appearances in the AFC. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, Anthony Richardson looks like a beast right now. I mean, CJ Stroud. I would take CJ Stroud over Kenny Pickett right now, and he's a rookie. And he's only 3 games in. It's like, look at how the AFC is right now. When you got a young quarterback, you have a promising future. And when you got a young quarterback that already is elite, you got a chance at being able to be a perennial powerhouse for decades. As long as you got a great team and good coaching. And the Steelers, they always have good teams, but they're not going to have a good quarterback. And I know it's year 2 and he's injured, so I want to see how he comes back from his injury. Now, as far as Desmond Ridder, like, I think he's just not good. Okay, and I think eventually he's going to get benched for Taylor Heineke. Arthur Smith is in year 3. He has a lot riding on this season. And the Falcons' defense has played pretty well. So if Desmond Ridder isn't it and he can't take care of the football, you need to put in Taylor Heineke. Arthur Smith, his job security is kind of on the line. And I don't know if he's going to get a 4th year if the Falcons miss the playoffs. If it's due to Desmond Ridder being trash. The Falcons haven't been competitive in their last 2 games. You got blown out by the Jaguars. The Jaguars don't have a great defense. You got blown out by the Lions. Okay? You barely beat the Panthers. And Bryce Young played awful. And you barely managed to beat the Green Bay Packers. And you know what's funny is that I said that in that game, Desmond Ridder almost threw 3 interceptions. And there were Falcons people coming at me saying, oh, almost doesn't count. Like, he didn't throw them, so that's all that matters. It's like, no, it still matters that he almost threw 3 interceptions because that means that he's making bad decisions. He's making bad reads. And when you make bad decisions and bad reads, you throw picks. Rather, if they get caught or dropped or not, it's still a mistake. And eventually they catch up to you. You know, my algebra class, I used to find ways to get the answers, not doing things the proper way. And eventually when the problems got more complex and I didn't know the proper way to finally be able to solve the problem, I got caught and I ended up not being able to solve the problem. And for Desmond Ridder, you know, it's like with him not really being great at reading defenses and being turnover prone, he's a liability to this offense. This offense is based on running the football and ball control. And when you take a lot of time off the clock, you can't afford to have a lot of mistakes because you're not going to have a lot of opportunities. Desmond Ridder just isn't it. And I already had an evaluation on him coming out that I didn't really see him being anything all that great. I thought at best he could be a serviceable starter at times. You know, Kenny Pickett, it's like I thought he could be a top 15 quarterback at best. But Desmond Ridder, it's like I barely thought he could cut it as a starting quarterback. And with the Falcons, it's like their offensive line hasn't really done him any favors. Their offensive line knows how to run block, but they just don't give a damn about pass blocking. And some of this is based on Desmond Ridder holding the ball too long.